Okay. So 16th verse. Nat Natyash natastu yogosti na chaikanta manashnatah na chati swapnashilasya jagrato naiva charjuna. So 16 and 17 verses will appear a little similar. What he's saying is, he is talking about moderation. Krishna is saying, whatever you're doing, you do it in moderation. The one who is engaging in too much of eating or too little, engaging too much of sleep or too little sleep, then you cannot be established. You will not be able to be established in yoga. The mind will not be able to remain steady. Okay. Um, Now, the whole process of yoga, or particularly dhyana yoga, this particular chapter that we're looking at, is how do we bring the mind to a certain state of stability within us under whatever conditions. So people may argue, oh, it's only the mind, right? You have to control the mind, right? So why can't I eat whatever I want to eat, however I want to eat, whichever way? So people usually misuse this thing of saying, it's the control of the mind. In fact, when people will say, if you have to do dhyana, why do you need a silent place? You should learn to do dhyana in noise also. We will continue to make the sound in our house. You continue to do your dhyana. Why are you getting disturbed? All of these are just என்ன சொல்றது அது வார்த்தை ஒன்று வருமே um,
Vidandavadam.
விதண்டாவாதம் விதண்டாவாதம். Correct, that's the right word. Vitandavadam. Just for the sake of unnecessarily disagreeing with what somebody is saying and unnecessarily creating a ruckus. So this is that is fine for somebody who's already established, but somebody who is in the path, in the journey, you need to offer them an environment that they are allowed to practice this. And even in the household, if you have anybody from children to kids to mother to sister to brother to old parents and grandparents and all, anybody who's willing to spend some time in isolation and sit in dhyana, we should look at an opportunity to allow them to do that. We should always allow for an environment to do that. Right? We should not suddenly, திடீர்னு என்ன தியானம் எல்லாம் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காரு உட்காந்து சும்மா அப்படின்லாம் சொல்லி, you know. There are people who don't understand the importance of it. அதெல்லாம் வந்து that makes a thing of mockery. The people do that. So we should not be party to that. We should always allow whoever it is, if they're finding some, because at any point in time in your life, your inner joy, if anybody accidentally or through a sadhana, they find this joy or peace is coming from within and they are able to go there, you should allow them to. So if somebody is, for instance, but at the same time, he's talking about extremity. So don't go on either extremes. Don't suddenly say that, I'll be, see, fasting at certain instances, certain times of a cycle, it's okay. But if every day there is some kind of fasting or the other, and every season there is some fasting or the other, it's not good, because your body doesn't get the necessary nutrition. So for you to be able to live a healthy life, you need food, you need nutrition. Unless you get to a point where you're able to absorb sun's rays and you're able to live, you're able to just drink water and able to live. You have done some sadhana to get to that stage. But for normal people, if you're on the spiritual path, you don't need to do these extremities. Even Buddha, after going through these extremities, he came and realized that the middle path is the best path. He did all kinds of extremities, right? He hung by the tree, he stood on one leg, he did all kinds of austerities. He starved himself. And then he came to a point where he realized, if you starve yourself, if you put yourself through all this, your body is getting weaker. And if the body is weak, your mind cannot be strong. There's a very strong correlation between the two. And if the mind is not strong, your mind, you're not able to hold your mind in place. How will you do dhyana? How will you do sadhana? How will you do yoga? So he's saying, na ati ashnataha. It means don't overeat. At the same time, don't undereat also. right? Don't abstain from eating. Anashnataha. Don't oversleep, neither reduce the number of hours of sleep, right? So both and when we look at extremities, we look at the next shloka also. Extremities of any kind, right? We move to the 17th shloka, and you see here he says yukta aharasya yukta ahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu. So yukta means moderate. So when he is saying in the previous one, he is saying don't go to extremes, and here he is saying be moderate, meaning the same thing. So here it's not just moderation in eating and sleeping, moderation in activity. In both any kind of activity that you do, work. If you're doing work, do it in moderation. Don't exert yourself so much that the people who ask, how do you find time to do this? How do you find time to do that? You organize your priorities. Organize your priorities and you make sure people around at the workplace, in the home front, wherever, they understand what your priorities are. You make them understand. You show that you're very serious about certain priorities. See, there are people you will find in your same organization, you will find people who are going for triathlons, marathons. When do they get time to practice? They are figuring out time, right? Somehow they take out time. Saturday, Sunday, morning, evening, or even in the office. I've seen people, if it's a good weather, people carry their running clothes to office, and during the
Yeah.
lunchtime on a
The
certain day,
shoes.
they will carry running shoes. They will take a break and they'll go run and come.
Afternoon, whether they have lunch or not, they will definitely go for their run and they'll come back and
Exactly.
come back with a sandwich or something.
So which means they are showing that this is my priority and I'm establishing my priority. Why can't we do that? If doing sadhana is a priority for you, we can definitely find time. Even at work, when I was in Singapore and Citibank, we used to gather. We'll say Ekadashi is, let us not, anyways, we are not eating on an Ekadashi. So let us meet during the lunchtime. We'll meet in the office room. We will do some dhyana. So if you start showing what is your priority, what is important to you, then people around and environment around will start aligning appropriately. So when you start showing moderation in work, you're doing something else which is more important, then automatically on the work side also, you may be able to let go of some things. Today we are not able to let go because there is this FOMO, this fear of missing out. If I don't do this, what if they'll throw me out, they'll do this, they will not give me that thing, that thing. How much ever you slog, at the end of the day, what you got to get, you'll get. There is a line we need to draw there. I'm not going to burn myself beyond this because people have gone through a lot of burnout and yet they have not received the reward that they expect, right? It's not that you burn out and suddenly you will get pure pitchindu varaporadana. So moderation in work and moderation in recreation also. அதுக்காக I don't have much work to do ன்னு சொல்லி ஃபுல்லா ரெக்ரியேஷன்ல போய் ஒரு தீம் பார்க்கா போய், that also is, we should do something productive, something creative, something engaging, something that can be useful to people around, that we can be of value of, right? So yukta ahara viharasya, you eat moderately, you have moderate recreation, you have moderation in work, you have moderation in sleep, you have moderation in wakefulness. In sleeping also moderation, don't oversleep. Why? Because slowly, if you oversleep, slowly you'll notice that the mind becomes dull. Over time, your mind will become dull. And at the same time, if you don't give our body and mind enough sleep and enough rest, then there'll be burnout. And some of these things will be noticed over time. A lot of people at the younger years, they're able to do these extremities because somehow the body does not show the result of the damage that is happening. The result of the damage comes much later in age. So we take up moderation, and that is when we will also be able to enjoy the fruits of the sadhana that we do. If your mind is in a calm and a relaxed state, then the result of sadhana, the calmness, the peace, the joy that comes from within, we'll be able to recognize it and enjoy it. Right? So that is the 17th verse. 18th one is saying,
கார்த்திகேயன் குருஜி சொல்லுவாரு, மத்திய பிரதேஷ் கவனிச்சாதான் உத்தரப்பிரதேஷ் வேலை பண்ணும் அப்படின்னு.
யார் சொல்லுவா?
கார்த்திகேயன் குருஜி சொல்லுவாரு.
ஓ, அவரா?
மத்திய பிரதேஷ் ஃபுல்லானதான் உத்தரப்பிரதேஷ் வேலை பண்ணும்.
உத்தரப்பிரதேஷ் டெவலப் ஆகும். கரெக்ட். ஆமா, ரைட் நவ் இட்ஸ் இம்பார்ட்டன்ட். யதா விநியதம் சித்தம் ஆத்மன்யேவாவதிஷ்டதே நிஸ்பிருஹ சர்வகாமேபியः யுக்த இத்யுச்யதே ததா. So with this kind of discipline and some withdrawal of the mind from the senses, etc., then we will able to be in some amount of yoga. Yada viniyatam, when there is this control, whenever there is mention of control, understand it's not control, it is regulation. This is something that's very important. Mind, you're not controlling the mind, you're regulating the mind. Breath, pranayama is not controlling the breath, you're regulating the breath. Any kind of yama or niyama is about regulation, which means you're bringing it to a state of equilibrium. Right? Mind also, you can't control the mind. You can bring the mind to a state where it doesn't agitate so much. Thoughts and desires are not generated so much. Then there is no agitation. So it comes to a relative calm. And then you can direct it where you want it to be acting. If I don't want to think about something, I know where to go in a place within me where the mind can switch off or at least calm down. See, that is the trick. You sit down to control the mind, it will never work. Right? Because the moment you try to control it, it's like pressing a spring box. The more you press a spring box, there is more momentum that is generated inside and the more it will throw out. Correct? So we should never try to press it that way. We should go through the process of it slowly coming from this oscillation to slowly a slower oscillation or a more. And this is, how do we do this? We try to find another place to go within, by action of which the mind slowly starts calming down. So you use the breath, you use attention, bringing your attention to some object, some deity or a flame, something. You bring your mind to some of attention, you bring your attention to some object, or you focus on the breathing, you bring your attention to breathing, or you bring your attention to the sensations in the body, or you bring your attention to the present moment, you just observe. Whenever you do all of this, the mind slowly comes to a calm. That is a result. The mind coming to a calm is a result only. It can never be achieved through a kriya of calming the mind. There is no kriya to calm the mind. There is a kriya to do things which will eventually calm the mind. The resultant will be calming of the mind. It's not a direct result. Direct is your body, when you're breathing, for example, if you're focusing on something, automatically your breath will become slow. When your breath becomes slow, slowly the mind will calm down. Yada viniyatam chittam atmanyevava tishtati. So the oscillations will reduce. Nispriha sarva kamebhyah. The cravings will also reduce from all kama. And he remains situated in yoga. Kama is what? Desire. Desires will be there. The problem is, if the desires are coming like waves and waves and waves, where will you swim? Where will you sit? Where will you stand? You'll completely be buffeted. You'll be beaten, right? Why do we have to bring the mind to a calm? Otherwise, it will keep bombarding you, desires after desires after desires. Now, desires can be in the form of something that you want to achieve, or it can be in the form of desire, fear that you're wanting to get away from, or anxiety. All of these are forms of vritti, chitta vritti, and these it will keep throwing up. There's one exercise that I did. I was sitting in a beach in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I was living there for a period of time and used to go there every evening, morning, evening. I'd go there during sunrise, sunset and sit in the beach and do meditation. I would do that very gently, not crowded at all. very little people on the beach. Very beautiful place. And the sunrise, because it's the east, we'll be able to see the sun coming out of the horizon there. Very beautiful. We'll sit there 5:30 and go there, nicely sit. One day suddenly a thought just came to my mind, because you see crabs going in and out of the sand, right? You'll see crabs going in suddenly and coming out and all that. Suddenly a thought entered my mind, what if there are crabs under me? You don't have control over thoughts, right? Suddenly one day, other days are all okay. This one day, suddenly a thought occurred that what if crabs are sitting under me, and they are going to come out and they're going to bite me. They're going to, you know, come and bother me or something like that. And suddenly visualization builds up. There are a lot of crabs sitting under me. So whole visualization started building up. I was looking at my mind, what the hell is it doing? And then I realized, and then I couldn't sit there. Imagine, it can actually drive you nuts, right? I had to get up there and I had to dust myself to see what is there, what is the situation there. And there's nothing. So the mind can put you into a situation where it can completely put you into a state of unrest and disruption. That is why we want to bring it into a state of calm and state of this vritti is not rising, because once the vritti is rise, it becomes very difficult for us to manage also certain times. So sarva kamebhyah yukta ityuchyate tada. That time the yogi is in perfect balance. Now he gives an example now. Krishna gives us an example of how a lamp which is kept in a corner of the room or in a windless place, how it does not flicker. Yatha deepaha nivatasthaha. Nivata. Vata means air. Nivata means no air. Sthaha. It is stationed in a place where there is no air. Na ingate. Na ingate means does not flicker. Ingate means to flicker. Na ingate. Sa upama, which means in that way. Upama means in comparison. In that way, yoginaha yata chittasya, whose mind is disciplined, yata chittam, yunjataha, is practicing yogam, remains established in the supreme, established in that within the atma, atmanaha, yogam atmanaha. So this is the example where if your desires keep rising, it's like the wind that is blowing, it's the breeze. Vrittis are like the manas vritti, the thoughts that rise from the mind are like breeze and wind. It can be like a simple wind or it can be like a tsunami wind. It depends on what is in there, right? When that happens, it's very difficult for your mind to remain calm and quiet. So see, look at this. He's saying you have to get to a windless environment within you. Then your mind can be ekachitta, ekagrata. Chitta ekagrata can be achieved, or that one pointedness, like the flame glowing upwards. How does the flame go? It goes upwards, right? In a beautiful windless place. Like that, the mind will go and it will merge in meditation with the Ishta. It could be within or it could be in your mind or wherever. That Ishta now becomes that becomes stationary, stable, fixed, and then your mind is just rising towards that. The dhyana or the intention, the attention is rising towards that. When is that happening? When these vrittis are not blowing like the wind. The vrittis are blowing like the wind, the mind will also keep flickering. It will not be able to station itself on your object of meditation. Right? So there is a beautiful metaphorical explanation here. And then he says, Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya. When that inner joy rises by the practice of this yoga, yoga sevaya, yatra cha eva atmana atmanam. So through this purified mind, you establish yourself in the mind. Pashyan Atmani Tushyati. Such a person, he remains in that Atma and remains fulfilled. He remains completely fulfilled and undisturbed. And this this practice that we do is on two occasions. One, when you sit down and do sadhana, you try to bring your mind into the state of calm and peace. And in your daily activities, you should try to bring that there slowly. And by bringing that, what it means is you start exhibiting it. Right? Anger management, it is taught, if you get angry, let it out. So the way that anger management is taught, that you let out your emotions, don't suppress them and all that, right? It is important not to let it out on others, but then also process it. And the issue that we have is we try to manage these emotions individually. Anger management, jealousy management, hatred management, fear management. You can't develop management of these things individually. It will never happen. You'll never have a person who's completely without anger but has no jealousy.
The more you suppress, the more it will take a Vishwarupam.
It will take other forms. It will take other forms, right? If you suppress your anger, it will turn into hatred. If you suppress your hatred, it will turn into some other form of fear. It will just change shapes. So if you really
Vasil Raja MBBS Prakash Raj, he gets very annoyed, but சிரிச்சுண்டே ஒரு மாதிரி உள்ளுக்குள்ள கோவத்தை வச்சுட்டு இருப்பான். அது மாதிரி.
True. So what happens in this process is that if you letting it out is fine, trying to manage it is all fine. The problem is if you pick up one and try to manage that one, it will be an issue. What we have to do is mind management. We have to get to a place where we observe our mind, the vrittis that are happening there, and try to pay attention to what is happening and try to find ways like these that are said, go within and let the mind come to a place where there are no vrittis. The moment you reduce vrittis, it doesn't mean we are reducing creativity, we are reducing our ability to do intelligent things. No. Vrittis are obstacles. You're reducing vrittis means you are reducing randomly generating thoughts. Randomly generating thoughts which are counterproductive to what you want to do. So the focus should not be if somebody is really hot, short-tempered, or has certain or has some negative emotions within they're trying to suppress or trying to manage. They should look at it holistically and try to manage the mind as a whole. And where does mind sit? What is mind? Mind is essentially vritti, mana vritti. Thoughts that rise, that is mind. There is no mind which is separate from thoughts that are rising. So what we are working on is how to slowly reduce the thoughts that are randomly rising within me, which I have no control on. How do I reduce them from rising so rapidly and developing it into, like Kalpaka said, a Vishwarupam? Like the thing that happened to me in the beach. It just blows out of proportion. When is that possible? When I keep my mind under, I train it not to be so oscillating. I train it to be in a much less agitation. So when I keep training it that way, then the random vrittis will also stop rising. Okay. So with that, we will pause here today. Verse 20. Okay. Next week we'll pick up from 21. Om Kayena Vacha Manasendriyatva Buddhyatmana Va Prakriti Subhavat Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayana Yati Samarpayami Sadashivaya Yati Samarpayami Jagadambikaya Yati Samarpayami Sadgurunatha Yati Samarpayami Hari Om. Hari Om.